You know, I loved about this whole thing was, oh, by the way, Sylvester Stallone dropping in to give you my take on the first blood process. At first, I thought it was a disastrous idea. I didn't want to do it at all. It had been around for about 7 years, and it was kind of a curse on the project. By the time I had seen the script, just about every viable leading man in Hollywood had passed on it, and about a half dozen directors. So I was doing Nighthawks at the time, and I was presented the script at Andy Vanya, and they offered me a very, very, lucrative fee. But I thought, no, I don't want to do this. And the truth is, literally until the day I went up there, I was completely against it. I was having dinner at Burt Reynolds' house, and I thought, if I happen to slam my hand in the door here and break all my fingers, think I can get out of the movie? Because get a little carried away here. But just remember, it's all about the performance, and even though if the movie dies and you're good, it doesn't matter. And I said, Bert, that's the worst advice I've ever gotten, but thanks anyway. Anyway, the next day I went up to do this film, and I was, again, not very secure about it because it was going into uncharted waters. I remember the first scene was going up to this house along a lakeside, which is right in front of us right now. And I was starting to get into the mood. I knew that we were doing something very, very offbeat because everything I had done had been urban, and now this was completely rustic. And I felt comfortable with it. So approaching the house, I was thought, all right, how do I do this? How do I get my character in gear? All right, I want to play it like a fella who is incredibly guarded, but he's going to be childlike. So we'll never for a moment think that this guy has any warrior tendencies. He'll almost seem like nebbish. He'll be a non-physical creature. So I thought of myself as a non-intimidating person. So therefore, I would, my body language and everything would be a little more, obviously non-threatening.
Wrote this address down, right here. There. You can see that's Delmore's right.
And I figure, all right, he's a man that doesn't speak very much, so not to overanalyze this, he would just sound faltering in everything that he says. So I thought, okay, here's a man that's like starting up an old abandoned engine. It just sputters. It doesn't flow with any kind of high RPM. It's just barely turning over.
That's me. That's Danforth and Westmore, Bronson, Ortega.
Most of the people I'm talking about there are people on the crew. Those are the names I can remember. So I guess, the wardrobe department and half the makeup department have been immortalized.
What time will he be back?
He died.
What?
Died last summer.
Died how?
Cancer.
Okay, now this is when the garage door comes down. This is it. This is the last moment of any kind of sense of optimism or light at the end of the tunnel or trying to recapture a friendship. So when I hand over the picture and throw away my address book into the fire, he's over. He's America's waif. He's gone. There is no direction, no plans, no aspirations, zero. Completely part of the landscape. And it's almost as though he's looking for a cause. I remember walking down the street here. I said, geez, I hope it doesn't look this gloomy on film. And sure enough, it did. It was cold. We went up to a place called Hope, Canada. And Hope was a great place, but it didn't reflect the name. It was highly depressed. Everyone was being laid off at the mills. So there was a lot of angry loggers around, if you know what I mean, which eventually played havoc with the crew. I'll get into that later.
Morning, Amy. How you doing, girls?
I love Brian Denny. He's a man's man and an actor's actor. And I had first worked with him in Fist. And he had a lot of great scenes in Fist. All of them didn't make it to the, all of us, it didn't make it to the actual screen, but some of them did. And so he was a big guy and ex-military man himself. So it was good. Very large guy and imposing, certainly kind of like as large as the landscape itself. So it was very good casting.
Morning.
I'll never forget this scene here. I thought it was well written, even though I had something to do with it. But that aside, I was getting rewrites from the people. They were hiding another writer, I don't know why, in a room. And I'd be getting these rewrites, like in the morning, just before I'd walk out there. He'd go, okay. They'd say, hey, where are you going? I'm just walking. He goes, well, you shouldn't be walking around here. And I'd say something like, did you ever hear of Easy Rider? He goes, yeah. I go, well, I'm Easy Walker. I said, that's it. I know, I know these lines are coming from some dark place. And so we went back to the simpler modification of the original script, which was pretty much what you're hearing now.
There's a diner about 30 miles up the highway.
Is there any law against me getting something here?
Yeah, me.
There it is, me. When it has nothing to do with common sense, it's personal. This is where the law stops and people start, and this is when problems start.
Questions around here, I do. You understand? Secondly, we don't want guys like you in this town.
It's not we, it's him. And what a lot of people didn't realize is that he was a veteran, this character, of the Korean War. And the Korean veterans were basically forgotten. It's like a war that no one recognizes, but it was a brutal war with almost 40,000 casualties. And here he sees a Vietnam vet who basically is getting a lot of attention because of the Vietnam War. So this became personal between the sheriff and Rambo. It had nothing to do with him being a vagrant or having something to eat. It was like, oh, my war was better than your war. I'm just as good a soldier as you are. So I'm telling you to get out on a personal level, not on a legal level.
If you want some friendly advice, a haircut and take a bath. You wouldn't get hassled so much. Hope this ride helped you out.
I remember they took us out to a bridge. It was freezing cold. And I now was starting to sink a little further into the melancholy of the landscape. I'm trying to wax poetic here, but, when you work in a setting like this, it starts to get into you, into your blood, starts to permeate your mentality. And I started to feel lethal. I started to feel very tough, very hard. And when I was walking across that bridge, I meant it. And when Brian Denny backs up, gets out of the car, there were some very terse moments. It came to me later on. He said, I thought you were going to stab me. I said, well, I wouldn't have stabbed you, but the character, man.
Let me see some ID. All right, you're under arrest. You hear me? Now put your hands on the car. Now you put your hands on the car and you spread them.
This is when Rambo, character, we're going back. He's going back to Vietnam. He's in full war mode now. And it was interesting. At that point, from the time he threw the little address book in the fire, you can see he's almost starting to relish this. And I was getting into it. The way it was scripted, the dialogue was so sparse that you had to speak kind of like with your eyes and your body and your hands and just your body English. So Brian Denny, he was great because he would fill in the blanks. What Rambo would not say in his own defense, he would fill in kind of like, what would you hunt with this? What, elephant? That kind of thing. So that there's a extraordinary, huge knife and by an odd character and who is almost a semi-autistic. He's just that withdrawn. So, there's an explosion around. Also, you have a bunch of people here that are generationally different, whereas Rambo, they considered him a hippie. He was an outsider, and there was no tolerance for this kind of character. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be as withdrawn, as tough as I can, and I purposely try to scare these guys all the time, just by glaring and dark moves, and even when the camera was stopped, I got to the point where I was not being invited to dinner very often.
Okay, here we go.
It looks like it's gonna take old Leroy about 10 years to paint this hall.
Well, why the hell don't you paint it your damn self?
Come on, Leroy, sling that paint, boy.
They built this, it was a police station, but it was undergoing construction. So when you see the painting and the ladders and the thing around there, that was for real. Because they just didn't want to shut it down. They said, all right, we're going to have our painters working during the scene. I said, oh, okay, fine. I like that. It's a great idea. It's something that is so wrong that it looks right.
Your name?
This is one of my favorite scenes. It was one of those kind of things that you just look forward to when they send you a script being covered in excrement through bamboo poles. It was one of those things where it was kind of necessary, but the more you participated, Rambo, I participated in it, the harder one becomes. So it was necessary, but man, it was freezing up there. Those areas where they were digging these trenches, it was, well, I think around December, because remember we had Thanksgiving up there, so it was ice cold, and it was right on what we call the frontier of Canada, where the winds would come whipping through there, and you get 10 below, 15 below, and someone thought it'd be great that when Rambo escapes, he's wearing a tank top. So I have to tell you that it was amazing that I didn't catch pneumonia throughout this situation. There was a lot of problems health-wise for everyone else, but for some reason I didn't get sick until someone offered me a shot of brandy. Up until then, I had been very, very healthy. These are, I didn't know who these actors were, but they were very good, and it was kind of like a game of give and take, where I wasn't literally focused on, I was just literally gone. I was doing everything that if the director said go right, I was going left. I said I should completely go contrast. Like, I'm waving towels during his lines. I'm stealing the scene by, it's not right. But I thought Rambo is instigating this guy by absolutely ignoring him and doing stuff during his takes that would annoy the actor and the character at the same time. And it did, as you can see, because he's breaking my fingers.
Clean him up.
All right, Preston. I want you to go over and get...
I had just finished Rocky III, and I was editing actually at the same time. So I was down in weight. I had done Rocky, it was about 168 pounds. Now I was down to about 164 in this. So I was feeling in decent shape, but getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And I'll never forget this scene here. This is a scene that started a real problem in the movie. It was supposed to be one take where he comes up and hits me in the hamstrings in the lower back and then kicks me. Well, we did this about 14 takes until finally I said, what do you want the guy to do? In a French accent? I don't know. I mean, we've done it so many different ways. And it led to a lot of tension on the set because it was now getting carried away. Like, how far do we beat up Rambo? And I said, well, you can beat Rambo up, but Stallone is getting a little sore. It was, and like the fire hose thing, the thing was so strong that it blew all the scar tissue off. That it took 2 hours to put on. So that's the real deal. That's the real deal. This is when I had asked a true Navy SEAL to help me work on this situation, that if a man who is borderline psychotic were to lose it, could he possibly get away in a situation like this? And we felt that the moves that Rambo employs right here would pretty much facilitate his escape. It's possible. And of course the actors are going, nah, I could hold him. So I had the Navy SEAL basically do it on these guys, and sure enough, he laid out about 3 of them. So it worked. It worked. The only problem was they kept snapping this billy club up into the windpipe, and it wasn't too pleasant. So it got a little tense right here. Wham. I mean, this could actually be done against an unsophisticated police force like supposedly this group is. This is a tiger claw, used in Oriental, and then of course gouging of eyes. There's no clean cuts here. I didn't want to do karate chops. It would be like you're fighting an animal. This would be grabbing someone very easy. Again, bang in the kidneys, throat. Now we start getting a little theatrical, but I had to add this one. This one I thought was kind of interesting. Bang, that's actually Brian Dennehy taking a shot full on the chest, and he went over a desk. These other fellows here were not actors, but they were taking some nice shots, especially the next guy coming up. He was like, pow. I mean, again, that's an actor and not a stunt man, and this fella here actually did get his nose broken. Bang. Sorry. Things happen like that. It's rough day at the office. Now we said, okay, what do we do? Again, that was kind of if I could do it over again, I wouldn't run up the side of the car, but it seemed like a cool thing to do at the time. But jumping on his motorcycle was extraordinary. That's myself up until we get to the outside of the town, and we employed a world champion. This is me. Kind of like shopping in a quick way, going to the center of town on Saturday. Now, from this point on, did an interesting thing. They just let it fly, really let it fly. And this is one of the first motorcycle chases that I've seen that is horrifically unchoreographed. You just say, okay, you want to go down this? Let's go down the street. Let's go down this thing. Let's leap this. And these are icy, wet streets. As you can see the fog up there, this is a horrible situation. It's like ice everywhere. And look at this man go. Mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing. It's interesting, too, the director decided to cut all the music out of this, which all you would hear is what these 2 men would hear. Just the engine, the wind in their ears, and the gravel, the skidding. So I thought it was pretty inventive. Usually in this kind of situation, in some of the action films I've been in, you would have, an 80-piece orchestra just blaring away. This bike wasn't being towed. I ride motorcycles, but, certainly not to this extent. But some of these shots we had to do, and it got bad. I remember the one shot where I think, let me see, it was just before we came off the road. And we almost had a head-on collision right before this jump here. So it was extremely dangerous, because even though the stunt people tried to block off the highways, they couldn't. And this one truck came by, and let me tell you, it was very, very close. I was ready to shake hands with the angels. Okay, about this time I'm back on the bike. And moving up, we thought, okay, this is kind of an interesting situation, because he's getting further and further into his elements. So we were going into spots. So what do you think of this? What do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? Like, yeah, fine. Let's wing it here. Let's wing it here. Like, this is cold, man. Let me tell you. We had a problem where my eyes, the liquid in my eyes, was starting to freeze up. I hate complaining about this because we're paid well, but if you want to know what goes on behind the scenes, it's hard to focus truthfully when you're going 40, 50 miles an hour in this weather. This was an accident with this car, and they kept it in. No one could, plan a slide like that. So they put Brian in the car after the stuntman flipped over and winged it from there. And I had to go up and flip off the bike. This is not, such a hard thing. You just had to get out of the way. The hardest part of this was it kind of took a toll on your hands. The rocks, like cheese graters. I look at this today and I'm going, I had to be insane. I had to be a little nuts to do this because these rocks are very, very moist, wet, mossy. And it's hard enough just walking up them. We had a lot of crew members with ankle sprains and breaks and fingers snap because it's just very, very difficult. This was unplanned too. I was running through the woods and I said, hey, you know what? There's this abandoned junkyard in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of interesting. Let me just rummage through there. So we threw that cord up and I found a piece of rotten canvas. And this canvas was going to provide me my only break in the weather. It was the only thing that was going to keep me from completely being frozen. But it was truly a piece of local canvas, and there was only that piece. So if we lost it, it was like losing the Holy Grail. So that piece became the most protected thing in the set. The hell with Stallone, the hell with everything else. Don't lose that piece of rotten canvas that only existed right there. That was it. The only thing on the planet. That was not something that the wardrobe department brought. It was so dry rotted I could just put my knife through it and zip. I said, you know what, this is fantastic. And I still have that at home hanging up next to a tuxedo or something. It's one of my prized possessions.
Bitch! Lester! He's up there, beyond the draw.
This is probably around noon, 11 o'clock, and you can see it's starting to get dark already. We had a real problem with lighting up there because you're in such a high hemisphere. By 2:30 in the afternoon, it was time for headlights. It was a very big problem. There was a time where we couldn't shoot for 30 days of weather, just socked in. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. This is me with a piece of wire and a piece of canvas, which I was so grateful for. So grateful. That thing, because running through the woods and just a tank top, you're getting whipped by these wet leaves and branches, and after a while, it's like getting snapped with a horsewhip. This was close to my first scene in the movie. Backtracking here, the actual going up to the house and throwing the phone book away was maybe a day or two after that. This was what was great. I got to this ledge, and when these people come close to trapping me, as you'll see coming up, there was no true escape, and we get to the edge. And the way the mountains are constructed up there, or the ledges, again, this is, oh, by the way, this knife was made by a man named Jimmy Lyle, called the Arkansas Knifesmith. He is a legendary knife maker who has passed on. So he designed this knife specifically for this film. And this knife truly was, I think, an incredibly, I guess you might say in a flattering sense, copied knife all over the world. And this knife, he had everything in it. I didn't get to use all of it. We cut some of the scenes, but Rambo uses a compass. He uses a fish hook. He uses thread to sew. There's knives in there. There's, pen knives. There's razors. You could survive pretty well on what's in there for a while.
There were 3 of us on him in the cell block down there. He went through us like we weren't even there.
Here we go. Now it's, again, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and once you get into this forest, it's history. This is my first scene in the movie. I run up to this tree. I grab it, crack my shoulder into it and go, okay, welcome to action films again. And now I'm at the edge. I said, you got to be kidding me. I turned to the director. I said, this is not good, because the moss at the very edge, we could slide right off the edge. So right there, they decided to tie a rope to my ankle. So if I fell over, it would, basically you could retrieve the body. I mean, it's not going to save you, because you're going to go over, and it's kind of like the bell clapper effect. Down, smash on the side of the hill, and that was it. And I knew I was in trouble when I looked around, and the entire crew and the director, they were tied to trees. And I'm the only one hanging out on the moss. This is for real. This is hanging over the side. There was an indentation there, so if I fell, it would be about 15 feet. It wouldn't be all the way down. It would just be a rough landing. I remember this day because it was exceptionally cold. And there was created this wind by this damn helicopter that was impossible to deal with. It would go up the canyon and blow up the canyon and create this, I don't know what you would call it, kind of like a cyclone effect that I couldn't see anymore. It was just, you could see the breath. It was impossible. They helped with that ledge and gave me a support for me, so I had something to grab onto a little bit longer. But I'll tell you what, this was not a good day. This was a real long day. The first shot here, when they started using squibs, it was a little reckless. The special effects guy, Thomas Fisher, is very, very good. But this is a tough one to do, because with the wind, as it exploded against the rock, it would ricochet off like that and get into my eyes or ears, and you were tempted to grab yourself and then fall off.
Jesus, God, he's stuck there. He can't go anyplace.
This I thought was a pretty clever move by the stunt people. The first fellow there was Buddy Joe Hooker, I believe, who started the fall. Yeah, now it's getting cold and people are getting agitated. And the helicopter actually is swerving around up there because of the upstairs. Oh, that hurt. That was bad. The downdrafts. Now, could this possibly happen? Absolutely. This is one of those stunts which I'm very proud of. This is Buddy Joe Hooker. Insane, but great. You believe this? Now he goes through the first third. Another man is right there through the second third. And then I'm at the last third coming up. That's me. It's interesting to note that we had done this twice. I was asked to do it a third time, and the trick was to basically abandon yourself and try to catch the branch right on the soft spot of the stomach, kind of like with the indentation. Well, I twisted and I caught it on the rib. So it broke my rib, lower rib, and I fell to the ground. So it was pretty easy to act out the pain, if you know what I mean. Again, these squibs here, if you turn into them, they will take your eye out. So it's a timing situation where, okay, let me go, let me look. And so as soon as I look, you pull back immediately because you know it's coming. He's going off a facial cue. Bang, boom. So it was very, very good the way the coordinators did this. But you had to hang your face out there to make it work. Again, another freezing day. It's I went down to the rocks here. Everything was it's rocks. It's up and down. I mean, it's steep. This was a kind of an interesting moment for me because he is He's back in Nam. This is it. And the fellow that, he was a great guy. I love this guy, Jack. And, it was freezing cold, and I thought, I want to take this jacket, what a man would do. It was obviously, you get rid of your poncho and take an insulated jacket. But I thought, it just doesn't look as good. So no one ever knows what happened to the jacket, but I took it anyway. At this time, too, Mike Westmore had created the scar, which I think was something that had set a trend in later films. The way it pumped out when Rambo is sewing himself up is surreal. It's just utterly fantastic. I look at it now, I go, you know what, I'm buying it. I don't know if anyone's going to find any humor in this, but we took a lunch break here, and I thought, let me see how real this really is. And I went to the local emergency room, and with the fish hook and the thread hanging out of my arm, and I had the pump in my armpit, so all I had to do was flex my armpit, and it would bleed just like you're going to see now. Watch right here. Boom, comes out, and it's very, very real. So I went in there, and of course they were panicked. I said, what happened? Well, I fell against this axe handle in there, and I started sewing myself up. I said, my God, you started sewing yourself up? I said, yes, but it became slippery, and I need some painkiller. I need, Tylenol. I got any Tylenol? I said, excuse me? I said, do you have any Tylenol? Anything, ibuprofen, something kind of like dull the pain. Aspirin will be fine. I said, oh my God. You're the toughest man we've ever met. I said, well, thank you. And I took the Tylenol and left and became kind of like emergency room legend in Hope, Canada. And now I'll let on to it, years later. True story. Like, you're sitting there with your arm hanging off and you're asking for Tylenol. This water, which played a big part in this film, is probably around 38 degrees. So hypothermia, you can count on it maybe 4 minutes in your history. So just even running through and getting your boots wet, you were asking for it. So all these guys down here, all these people are freezing. And the way they set themselves up on the rocks here, it took hours to do this. And, the thing had to be dubbed over because the water was roaring and ice cold. I think I was at the hospital getting Tylenol at this moment.
This came over the teletype a few minutes ago. John Rambo is a Vietnam vet. He's a Green Beret, Congressional Medal of Honor. Guy's a war hero.
Jesus, that freak!
I knew there was something about that guy.
I double-checked it, Will. What do you want me to do?
Now this is where, in the novel, it should be noted that his light really goes on. Congressional Medal of Honor winner, Vietnam hero, and he's a forgotten Korean hero. So this is more personal than ever before. It's about a man who believes he should have won it, and here's a man who did win it.
What's the matter with you guys? He's one man. He's wounded.
Those Green Berets,
They're real badasses.
Oh,
why don't you let the state police handle this?
see, this hits him right in the heart. And this is David Caruso. This is his first part that I know of, and he takes an ass whipping here. I mean, there's red hair all over that glove after about 5-6 takes. Because Brian doesn't mess around. It's like this crazy circus bear going after you. And David was pretty tolerant.
I'm gonna do it with you or without you.
But I knew he had something special, David, back in those days. He just had something. It was you can see it a mile away. He had attitude. This, believe it or not, is around 9 o'clock in the morning in the forest, and already it looks miserable. For people that wonder how other people get lost in the forest, let me just say that we had a standing rule here among the crew. Don't ever go more than 50 yards or even less away from the people you're working with, because everything looks the same. There is no outstanding features anywhere. They're all same trees, same rocks, the same underbrush. So you get confused. completely confused. And just like these guys here in the movie, that's what happens to them. I mean, how can you find anything in this ecological mess? We had a problem getting equipment up here because of the rocks and mud. It was just impossible. You can imagine these guys trying to drag all kinds of conduit up there. It was impossible. And you had to do it because you had to get some lights up there. This is one of those scenes that either makes or breaks a film of this type. Do you get silly with it, or sure enough, does it hold up? And there it does hold up, because now you understand what you're dealing with. Rambo is giving up his protection, his poncho and everything else, and to use this as a deterrent, and he's gonna simply, without a lot of, what I love about here in the directing, it's just, dog's gone. Now these people realize what they're dealing with here. And the first time I saw this cut, believe it or not, the scene in this woods was probably 45, 50 minutes. It just went on. It was like, let's call this the outback. It was a nature's, it was a long, long nature's walk. And eventually they got it down to, I guess, 12 very, very good minutes. And they did this under extreme circumstances. You'll see that some of the scenes are, the blacks are pushed because of the lighting. They had to do, even though, so it isn't what I would call cinematically perfect, but it captured the spirit, which I believe was a good trade-off. You'll see that some of the scenes sometimes are a little milky. It's okay. It was okay, because I think that adds to the realism of the moment, and not trying to be so, technically perfect. That fog there in the background is for real. That's that mist that comes in that I was telling you before that makes life miserable up there and very, very dangerous. You see every tree and every fern looks the same. What I think, and I don't know if it was a stroke of luck, if these men had been wearing black hats, you wouldn't see them. The white hats was a brilliant touch. It's like, oh, here comes the law. And there were little white hats through all this darkness. And it's like, very interesting, the contrast. Many of these fellas here got injured just walking through this stuff, because there's no real flat ground. It's pitted with rock indentations and false moss coverings. Imagine just trap doors everywhere that you're stepping into, and in crumbling trees that if some of these trees you lean on and it just falls over. Again, see how effective just the white hat is in this scene. If it had been a dark hat, it just wouldn't have been out. I mean, been as effective. I think coming up here was something that with David Caruso, I was laying in this pit for like 20 minutes, covered in moss, trying to get the timing right. And I said, could a man come out of the ground, hit another man's hamstrings and get away with it? Okay, yeah, let's go for it. Boom. And that would certainly drop someone. I enjoyed doing this. I thought that here's a fellow that could have killed him, could have killed all of them, and he's just taking just enough to let them know that he's on the fence. Don't push it anymore. They're dealing with and I've said this before, this would be the equivalent to the modern-day Frankenstein creature, just running amok. Something had been created by the system, so instead of being created by Dr. Frankenstein, there is created by America, American military. Then it escapes. It's let loose. And guess what happens? And like the Frankenstein monster, it just wants to somehow be absorbed into society, not be an outcast. And same with Rambo. So it's Rambostein.
He's over there! Hold on, it's firing! I got him! I got him! Signal, follow
It
me!
is ice cold up there. Ice cold. This was a great little bit. They built this thing to just whip forward and not hurt. Well, this fellow was laid out. I think he had to go to the hospital. It didn't go through him, but the impact of the board caused tremendous hematomas and that kind of damage. The most important thing is what they got out in the middle of this woods, and I don't know how they did it, is this lightning flash strobe that adds so much to the ambience. Again, it's getting almost medieval with the lightning and the creature in the woods, and you're at his mercy. This is a little different. In the original screenplay, Rambo, at this point, would have gutted him. Wouldn't have stopped. He just, he would have taken him out, as he did many other people in the woods. We decided that there's a lot of people like Rambo in their mind that are on the fence with society. So why not let them feel as though there's a chance to be brought back into the fold? Just leave them alone. Stop persecuting them. Stop humiliating them. Whatever it is. We see it all the time. People in schools that are saying, oh, I'm being persecuted, and they flip out. And then they do something drastic. We see it's been going on for centuries. Well, this is pretty much the same situation. Stop hunting me, stop persecuting me, or I'll give you a war you won't believe. This is our big production set here. This is pretty good considering if you knew where we were. There's one road in, one road out, a logging road. The majority of these people here are locals who are unemployed. When the mill closed, that was it. And they were happy for a while that we were there.
How bad is the situation? Captain, we need some kind of good thing to come out of this, missus.
Hello, this is the fellow from Deliverance.
We're just drinking the place dry. You look like you're ready to kill over, Will. Why don't you go home? It's my problem now.
Your problem. Listen, Dave. Don't give me any of your horse shit about jurisdiction in this one, you understand?
Would you like me to step outside?
Just finish up what you're doing.
Somewhere in this rugged mountain countryside, possibly above the snow line, shrouded in mist, the fugitive John Rambo.
Remember when I was jotting this down, writing this part, about the audience started booing, like the fact that, due to our, special police diligence, luckily lives were saved. It's great that when you can get the audience where you want them.
Sheriff and tried to kill 6 others. Only their skilled training and police enforcement techniques saved their lives. And word now is that the fugitive will be in custody in a matter of hours.
Maps, Will. Will, there's something I think you ought to know. I'll talk to you later, okay?
What is it, Lester? What is it? For Christ's sake, spit it out.
Oh, well, I was just talking to Mitch, and he was saying that Galt and a couple of deputies were a little hard on the guy.
Assholes.
Doesn't make one goddamn bit of difference, Dave, and you know it. Look, if one of my deputies gets out of line with a prisoner, then the prisoner comes to me with it. And if I find out it's like he says, I kicked the deputy's ass. Me. The law. That's the way it's gotta be. People start fucking around with the law and all hell breaks loose.
When you have people that are talking in a way that they can ad lib, and Brian was given some leeway. This was great.
I made him.
I made him. I don't know how much I could go into this, but it was interesting that the original fellow cast in this was Kirk Douglas, and he was perfect for the role. And I was actually talking to him about Rambo, and he get me into a headlock, and he goes, "Yeah, I think there's a scene where the colonel gets you into a headlock and throws you to the ground, and then he gets his forearm on your throat and breaks your neck." I said, "No, I don't think so. I think Rambo actually does not fight with the colonel." He goes, "But maybe the colonel should turn into Rambo." I said, "Well, maybe, but not in this movie." So Kurt Douglas is fantastic, and he shows up on the set, and Kurt's about 5'9", 5'8", and he has a script with thousands of, it looks like yellow pages. He's rewritten the whole script. And I go, "Kurt, you can't do this." He goes, "No, you agreed to the script." He goes, "Yeah, I bet some changes, and either we do them or I'm leaving." I said, "Well, what basically do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, I think that I really am the real-life Rambo, and you're Rambo, but he's a Rambo, and at the very end, Rambo is in this building, is blown up, but then he sneaks out, and we see this headband in the rearview mirror of a car that he's stolen, and we turn the mirror up, and we see it's Colonel Trautman, and we cut back, and Rambo is basically tied to a radiator." This is not. I don't know. I don't think it's flying. This is not going to work. He goes, "Okay, I quit." And at this time, we had Richard Crenna, who was absolutely fantastic, and he was doing a show on Broadway, and I think he was playing a gay doctor. So the first day on the set, he's 6'1" or 2", so we had to put a trench coat on him because Kurt Douglas's pants were coming up to his mid-shins, and his jacket was kind of like up to the middle of his forearms. So the first line was, rest his soul. He's absolutely a fantastic guy. He said, What person would actually make a man like Rambo?" He goes, "I did." I said, whoa. You got to get a little more bass in your voice. You have this upward kind of urban inflection. "I did." He goes, "I know, I just finished playing this, effete doctor." I said, "I understand, but you're now a battle-hardened Marine." So he had to dial back because he had taken the show literally on one day's notice. And, he's just fantastic.
I ought to do about your psycho out there.
He's great.
Let him go.
Let him go.
What? For now. Diffuse the whole situation. Diffuse him. Provide a little gap and let him slip through it. Then put out a nationwide APB. In a couple of weeks, you'll pick him up in Seattle or someplace working in a car wash. There'll be no fight and nobody else will get hurt.
I do my own work. I don't figure the best way to do that is to close my eyes and hope he gets picked up in Seattle.
Well, if you send your people in there after him, they'll get killed.
We're just a small hick-town sheriff's department, Colonel, but we're expected to do our duty, just like our heroes in the Special Forces.
In Special Forces, we teach our people to stay alive in the line of duty.
No shit. I never thought of that.
This is one of my favorite lines in Rambo. Right here.
You send that many, don't forget one thing.
What?
A good supply of body bags.
Dun, 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 dun. That reminds me of a line out of Dragnet, but it's effective.
I don't know which side you're on, Trautman. I still think you came out here just...
That's an important thing, because in the original screenplay in the book, which side are you on, Trautman? The fact is that Trautman was like Dr. Frankenstein. He created this monster, and he was going to put him away. He was going to kill Rambo. He was going to eradicate him. He was part of it. And I thought, geez, that's not exactly the kind of movie I want to watch. Maybe we should have him sort of on the fence about it, and we don't know exactly what his intentions are, because he's got to be a little embarrassed that he did create Rambo, but maybe there's an affection for him too. So we kept that ambiguity in there. This was actually a wonderful piece of pork. I'm serious, the boar. I don't have to tell my boar story. This is kind of demeaning, but I will tell it anyway. When I went up to Canada, I said, okay, this is going to be great. Why don't I actually jump on a boar with the knife and take it out, for real, on film? Because you're joking. I said, no, I talked to the local hunter. They said, no, you can't do that. I said, well, how about if we just wire the boar's mouth shut? He goes, no, this boar will pick you up with his jaws wired shut and ram you in the tree and stomp you. into oblivion. I said, okay, well, how about a deer? He said, no chance. A deer, I said, he's got a skinny neck. He says, well, that skinny neck, 120-pound deer will ran you into a tree and just emulsify you. I said, how about a bobcat? No, bobcat, back you up, tear you to pieces. He goes, how about 2 mountain lions? I said, beg your pardon? He goes, we could set up a situation where you go into a cave, there's 2 mountain lions in there, and there's a way to approach them that you can get very, very close. And I said, then what? He goes, and then they kill you. I said, well, this is like Canadian humor. I said, basically, he goes, maybe a jackrabbit. I said, a jackrabbit. He goes, maybe. They do bite. I said, Rambo can't get bitten by a jackrabbit. So we ended up using the boar there. Of course, I don't actually jump on him. And a footnote is, on the way home, the boar got loose, rolled out of a pickup truck at 40 miles an hour. Didn't even bother him, rolled across the road, ran into a grove. They called the fire department, and he treed the entire fire department. So maybe they knew something that I didn't about boars. So next time you see someone fighting an alligator or a tiger, you know what? Go to the kitchen and get something to eat.
They're all gone, sir.
It's him. Get on it.
Rambo, are you all right? Over.
Am I all right? Yeah. I'm bleeding to death. I'm in a cave, freezing, eating raw pig. No problems.
How?
Got himself killed in Nam. Didn't even know it. Cancer ate him down to the bone.
This part is an actual cave, I believe. There was a lot of mining areas up there, so it was freezing and good and very cold, dismal. It is exactly how it looks.
But they don't want any more trouble.
He's northwest.
That's why I've come. I'm gonna come in there and fly you the hell out. Just you and me. We'll work this thing out together. Is that fair enough?
Where'd you come from, sir?
Bragg.
There was a flashback right before this scene took place of me in happier times in a Vietnam bar with some lady of the night. They, I guess, to expedite matters, left that out. So Rambo, the point I bring up is he's getting further and further into the past.
Friendly civilians.
There are no friendly civilians.
Well, I'm your friend, Johnny. I was there with you knee-deep in all that blood and guts. I covered your ass more than once. Seems like bailing you out of trouble's getting to be a lifetime job for me.
There wouldn't be no trouble except for that king shit cup. All I wanted was something to eat. But the man kept pushing, sir.
Well, you did some pushing of your own, John.
They drew first blood, not me.
Look, Johnny.
Let me come in and get you the hell out of there.
They drew first blood.
And so it's on. At this time, I was thinking that Rambo is almost enjoying this process. This is what he does. This is what he's comfortable doing now. He doesn't fit into society anymore. So even though he's feeling a little bit of self-pity, he's reveling in this.
Come first light, I'm going to put every man I got up on that ridge. Now we'll get him my way.
Coming up here was a scene atop a mountain, again, very, very cold, where I come across some hunters. Oh, I forgot this. This is laying in that 39-degree water I was telling you about. Be careful what you wish for.
Come on, move it!
This was miserable. About this time, I am wondering, what is my rationale for this? I thought, okay, this will a little different. I said, oh yeah, he would do this to avoid the dogs. This situation in the book, in the novel First Blood, Rambo doesn't hesitate. He guts these people. He's that far out of control. I wanted to, or we wanted to, show that he's on the fence. This is almost a game, a sport, that it's not necessary to kill children or gut strangers. It's just that he wants to take on, it's his skill against the sheriff's skill. Right here was one of the worst injuries I thought I ever had. I leap into this cave and I put my hand on a log, but underneath it was this 32 caliber squib, and it blasted me. And I was, seriously, there's no kidding, I was afraid to look down for about a minute because I knew my thumb had to be gone. It was mind-numbing. Mind-numbing. Coming up right here. Put it on freeze frame, you'll see this thing explode. Pow! Oh, man. That was the worst. Doesn't seem like much, but man, those squibs, I'll never forget, because there was one that was, they put a squib in the wrong way in Rutger Hauer in Nighthawks, and it exploded inward and almost killed him, one squib, and he's a big man. It just literally took a piece out of him and scorched him right almost to his internal organs.
Keep firing! Come on, guys!
That was, by the way, an actual cave entrance, and it was just shored up in a haphazard way, which I think really added to the ambience of the film.
Raymond? What? I want you to go in.
This is not one of my favorite scenes. It's a little silly. You know, I got to be honest with you. It's a little silly. It's all of a sudden we're going to kind of like sitcom soldiers. Up until then, I was in it, unfortunately. But I guess the story itself is strong enough to override this horrific acting.
Now I'm giving you just 30 seconds to come on out.
It's like you have people doing two different films at the same time.
Come here, Earl. Right. Rambo, it's your last chance to come out. Maybe we should wait.
This is also before, I know, this is like, welcome to F Troop. Or Goof Troop, or what was that one that they, Sergeant Bilko, you know. Like, I know, it's incredible. This, though, was for real, serious stunt. This is before CGI. You just outran the explosion. Ba-boom, thank you, and get your ass out of there. We had about, in all the Rambos, about 15 of these situations where, you know, you're given about a 2-second lead and you go. And, it wasn't ultimately that dangerous, except when there were always, inevitably, there'd be a flying debris and you hope that it didn't hit you. There'd be like a huge splinter, or the worst was when they would, in some of these other situations, when they blow up cars because shrapnel will come out, and next thing you know, there's like a piece the size of a license plate. There was a situation actually in Rambo 2 where I'm on a bridge shooting arrows down at a convoy on a bridge, and it explodes. There was a person standing beside me. Now, this is 150 yards, 200 yards away, a girl, and she got hit with shrapnel, and she got about 40 stitches in her arm. Literally standing next to me, 150, 200 yards away. It's that unpredictable.
I don't believe it. Idiots.
Steady. Got it. All right, Nick, one more.
Here we go. Da-da-da-dun, da-da-da-dun, the creepy and the spooky. Thereafter look too gooky. The Adams Army. Da-da-da-dun.
Well, he was shooting at us, Will. Come on, I wasn't taking any chances.
Brian Dennehy must be going, please inoculate me. I hope it doesn't get over me. Please.
Dig his body out of there right away.
Not the ham fungus, please. Not the ham fungus.
Find somebody to dig him out.
Well, it's your mess, Clinton. You clean it up.
Will, come on. I gotta be back at the drugstore tomorrow.
And you better get started right away, Clinton.
I have a feeling this man is still standing out there with a helmet going, remember me? He's become like a 5-cent tour ride. This is brilliant photography. This is for real. No lights, real match, high-speed lens in there. Let me see, what was it? Andy Laszlo was the cinematographer. Because I get him confused. I was working with Laszlo Kovacs before that. Andy Laszlo was a Hungarian photographer, very, very good. And I thought he shot the majority of this movie brilliantly and using all the natural elements, and this is one of them. This was starting to a little hot on the hand here. But again, this is all natural lighting in a real cave. Ice cold.
Buried in a hole by a bunch of goddamn weekend warriors. Thought you said he was the best you ever trained.
However he may have ended up, there was a time when he was very special.
Special my ass.
These poor guys had the kind of like the dubious job of being the Greek chorus or the two individuals that fill in what Rambo should be saying. We thought that Rambo is a fellow who does not speak, and people speak about him. And so his deeds or whatever he did before has to be brought up to speed by these men.
Killed a police officer, for Christ's sake.
You're goddamn lucky he didn't kill all of you.
Again, natural lighting. My knife is getting very warm. So when I have to grab it, it's no thrill. That's an actual cave, I believe. And when we get into the lower portions of the cave, you talk about cold. This is, I don't know what I was thinking. You jump into that water. That's when I'll give you a story about the rats later on. It was miserable, ice cold, and dark and windy, and there's a reason anyone in their right mind didn't make this movie before me. They knew something. If I was offered this script now, I'd have to say Pasadena. It's really something for a young man with a death wish. It's rough. It's really, really, really rough. I know I'm not trying to be self-grandizing, but I don't think they would make a film like this anymore. It's just logistically difficult, and it's not that the young actors are not working on cold situations like this before, and there's like hard locations, but this one truly was off the chart. Like this area here, that's natural water coming down there. It's about 39 degrees, it's freezing, and you never knew what was going to break or whatever. Yeah, of course there's some, like this is, but right in here, again, that thing nailed me in the ribs. And I'm going, I cannot believe it again. So here I am back again with the problem. Of course, I'm holding my arm to make it part of the show, but the ribs were all taped up, and now I'm back in it again. And okay, fine. Again, natural lighting. Very, very interesting choice at that time.
How you doing, Will? Hold my call.
It was just, it seemed like we were there for about 4.5, 5 months because it was the lighting was just so difficult. I told you, I stayed 30 days. I couldn't shoot at all. It was that bad. Now, in this cave, it was pretty claustrophobic. Some of the cave was real, some of the cave was constructed, and the wind factor I thought was pretty clever. This is really getting into every Freudian nightmare a lot of people have, claustrophobia, you want to get going back to the womb. I mean, you can read it into 100 different things, but what I read it into is a cold hole with rats, and it gets bad. That water, again, like I'm saying, is ice cold, and we decided to go with rats, and these are so-called amenable, friendly rats. Go figure. Friendly rats. All right, so we're dealing with the rats, and they're really friendly. until you show up. Now, Rambo shows up. Rats recognize him as not one of their own, not very friendly, and as soon as they hit the water, they flip out because it's ice cold, and they guess what they do? They go to the first thing that's warm. That's you. You know, not only that, Rambo had to go for tetanus shots. So the emergency room was getting sick of me by this time. As I saw me, I was sewing myself up. Now I'm covered in rat bites. What do you do for a living?
Colonel?
Here's one of those scenes again where, okay, let's bring us up to speed.
See?
Little insight into the bar. We were having problems with the locals because they were unemployed and they were big, rough guys. You know it's a rough bar when people come in with a chainsaw, because that's what they use. They're tree toppers. So a lot of guys walk around with chainsaws out of habit. So Brian had a problem in the bar, and a few other fellas literally had been smashed into the table so hard that their heads split ashtrays. So it was not exactly a warm, fuzzy situation in the neighborhood. I decided one day to go in to the bar dressed as Rambo. So I took my lunch break and I went in full on Rambo. Now these guys, half of them had seen Rocky, but no one understood what the Rambo thing. I'm there with a headband and the knife and the bleeding arm and everything. So I go into the place and they're looking at me like, and they're not impressed. And I know it's moments away in this bar from getting it on. Of course, the one guy who was sitting across the room, who's the size of a piano, wearing a cowboy hat with a snake on the front, and a toothpick leaning back on a chair, is like glaring. And as fate would have it, his girlfriend comes up and says, "Would you buy me a drink?" I said, "Oh, here it goes. Now it's on." And I said, "No, thank you." "Well, you think you're better than me?" And here we go. And the bartender at that moment, because he comes over and goes, "And what would you like?" And I said, "This is the moment of truth." I should have said, "Bottle of whiskey," and leave it, and then bit off the top of the bottle and drank it. Of course, I asked for a Campari and soda, and the place went ashy. He goes, "Excuse me?" And I went, and now you understand, I'm Rambo asking for a Campari and soda. It blew my whole mystique, and I exited stage left with great haste. And that's my barroom story. I remember the director saying, "Could you climb up this ladder? But let's make it really strenuous. Don't use your legs." So this is me climbing the ladder, sans legs. Not this part, right at the very top. Here we go. Yep. This is not my background. I'm not, I enjoy stunts, but I got into it by accident. I didn't ever see myself as an athlete or doing this, but I don't know. It's crazy. I just thought, okay, let me give it a shot. How hard can it be? And ow, it was hard. because even though you think you land on a piece of metal, you land on this, whatever. So I give all the credit in the world to stuntmen.
Don't look at me, look at the road. That's how accidents happen.
There's another line I wish I could take out, but please.
Cathcart, Robert A.
All right, what do you got in the back, Robert A?
M6.
That should be the only line there.
Okay, Robert A, get out of the truck.
I got no beef with you. No.
Go on, move, go home!
It should have been just in the truck, throw, whatever, but I don't know. It's yikes. Anyway, in the world of stunts, when it started out with the Lords of Flatbush and Rocky and whatever, there were, Paradise Alley, there was no stunts. And what made First Blood kind of interesting and also daunting is if it was going to work, why not just go all the way with it? It was kind of an accident, almost a situation where if you're going to play the character, then try to be the character. And so I became somewhat identified with real physicality of these kind of characters, which, I'm proud of, but it was not a plan. In other words, I didn't come from the world of karate and wrestling and boxing. It was just a fluke. But I guess, things happen for a reason. And again, cutting out the music here. Pretty interesting choice. We're really driving these trucks and going for it on these back roads, and there's a lot of dangerous driving going on. It really is. This is not exactly your high budget film. This is not a film that anyone wanted to make. So by today's standards, it was, people say around 16, 17. I'd be surprised if it was that. Really, because it's in Canada, so that I don't think so. I think there's a much lower number. I know there has to be. How I decided to do this film, I guess there's a kind of a recklessness when you're young. So this is a little different. This is something that you don't see every day, and it almost became to me a physical challenge. Can you pull this one off? Then I said, sure. I'll give it a shot. And the fact that so many people else had passed on it became a challenge. When I showed up on location, I knew I'd made the wrong choice. I said, what am I doing here? This is bad. This is going to be a really rough, dangerous. Also, it's a career killer. I mean, I really thought this was going to end the career, just like these other guys. The reason they passed on it, because it was the first time that I recall a character, an American attacking America. And this was coming along at a time when we were going through kind of like, around going to a very, very right-wing area. It was it was the time for the Republicans coming to the forefront. It was all that. I mean, even though there was, the Democrats were in power, the country was shifting, and Rambo was sort of shifting with it. He represented this kind of seething undertone of a lot of forgotten soldiers. And I didn't know that was going to happen. I knew I was in deep and being identified with Rambo forever when, Reagan, who I liked, was very nice. President Reagan said, after seeing Rambo, I know what to do with Libya. I went, oh God. And Rambo's a Republican. I went, wow. No, Rambo doesn't even live in America. But it was too late. So Rambo became a symbol for, jingoistic right-wing might, and when just the opposite is true. Just the opposite is true. Rambo, if anything, despises his affiliation with the military. Despises. That's why everything you're looking in front of, you're seeing him destroying authority, destroying the military, and the same thing continues in Rambo. Part 2. He doesn't even live in the country. He's just isolated, and taking on this base, taking on the police station, really is as close as he can get to taking on the military. But for some reason, they identified him as pro-military. Just the opposite is true. This is hellacious. They were blowing this town to pieces. I don't think Hope Canada knew what it was in for. They said, okay, well, you know, it's kind of depressed. No one's working here. Why don't you just blow up the town? And guess what? They did. They took out parking lots. I mean, look at this. This is at a time when this was, you know, now we have explosions that look, you know, like Hiroshima. But this was massive at the time. You'll see in a couple of scenes where the actual frame shakes. They're 200 yards away, and the entire gas station explodes. The entire gas station. And you'll see the camera that's on sticks, because no one wanted to man it, shake. So, I mean, it's like an earth tremor. And, of course, there's Rambo running around freezing in a tank top as the earth burns. This is a scene, unfortunately, there's a couple of lines cut out of it, where Trautman shows a different side, and it would have changed the entire complexion of the film.
Clear out what you can.
Get the fuck out of here, Trautman, and you take your advice with you. When I talked to you earlier this afternoon, you knew he was still alive, didn't you?
Trautman is talking about actually how to set Rambo up and take him out, kill him. And it's subtle, but it's there.
You trained.
You trained him, that's right.
Places like that cave.
So he knows, yeah, that's right, you know how to get rid of him, too.
Teasel, you and all your men couldn't handle him before.
And when they, I said, my God, you know, either say it or don't say it, but they kind of like, it's good the way it is. It's in the middle, but it's chilling, but no one ever catches it. Really, that Trautman, if you asked him, would have killed him, would have killed Rambo.
There's only one man in this room that's got half a chance.
See?
Well, that's not because I'm better than he is, but it's because he trusts me. See, I'm the closest thing to family that he has left, and
Here we go.
the edge I need.
Jesus Christ, where do you...
That's all the edge I need. So the next, he continues with that. He goes, I could take him out much easier than you. So they went just to that, right to that edge. That's the only edge I need. He thinks I'm family. And then he goes, God, what kind of people are you? What are you doing? I thought he was your friend. So it was, there were some layers going on here. This is why I think First Blood is, I think, the best action film I've ever done. Barring a few bad lines of dialogues and, you know, some of Goof Troop in there, but overall it was pretty good.
Will, this is Lester. Do you copy? Over. Listen, Will. We got some serious problems. The highway's been cut off. The truck's out here, but we couldn't find the body. I repeat, no...
It's really about alienation. Anyone that, like Rambo, once you're alienated and you've got nothing to lose and there's no love, you are a dangerous, desperate creature, and people have to feel something one way or another, and this is the only thing he could feel. If he couldn't feel love, he had to feel the anxiety of war, of battle, of competition. And same with this guy. As you'll notice, he has no wife, he has nothing. This is true, basic, mano, raging testosterone, your most basic primitive male instinct right here. When it gets down to it, two alpha males going over, it's about territory. It's all about territory. That alpha male came into this man's territory. You know, if it had been two wolves, they would have settled this in the woods. This is how, you know, human beings do it. This is for our gun aficionados here. I took something that would be, I guess, a bizarre choice. In my hand is an M60 machine gun that is, you can see there's a tripod on the front. This is something that's that is heavy artillery used on machine guns, certainly never used by a single person. It's about 30 pounds at least without the belts. So I wrapped the belts around my forearm. I wanted to become, I said, this guy is so good or so, so insane at this moment that he actually becomes like a tank. He becomes a part of a giant piece of weaponry. So here he is, like this thing, like this massive gun that was getting hard to carry, so I had to throw this belt around my neck. But everything that we did with this character, it was all about him morphing into a full-on killing machine. You see the cross bandoleros. It's no one would in their right mind would do something like that. At the end of this, there was almost a terrible accident. As I'm backing out of this room, I fire the M60 into gunpowder, and it flared within, I don't know, I singed my eyelash. It was out there. It was, I don't mind doing some of these things, but you just never know. So right before the scene, I had put fire retardant on my face and my neck, and it came in handy, as you can see. Boom. That was a blast. I mean, a back blast, I should say. It's around 3 o'clock in the morning. The whole town is wondering what the hell's going on. But we didn't have too many looky-loos because this was, I thought, in my estimation, the coldest night of the shoot. Even though it doesn't look it, trust me, people, it literally took your breath away. But I kept thinking, all right, just think about your character. He's loving it. He doesn't feel it. Poor Brian is so cold, he's turning ashen white. Here we go with heavy symbolism. We're taking the establishment down. Of course, it's overkill, but I guess we're trying to make some visual statement here. Rambo he's taking the establishment apart, the one that he's killing the machine that basically killed his soul, basically, society in his mind. And here's a pawn for society. This is interesting. This is real lighting. I mean, actual no lighting. This is the way it was set up. And it was, again, Andy Laszlo shot it with that back window as being the only light, and whatever light happened to drift through the upper window right there. That's why these silhouettes are bold and great. Great. When I shoot Brian through the roof here and he falls down, he did the fall from about 8 feet up. He shattered his ribs in the desk here. He was down and out for the count. Again, this is all natural lighting, which I think is great. I wish all my films looked like this. That's the way it would be. Watch this fall. Oh. Ouch. Stunt man. Here comes Brian. Go. Well, yeah. This is a really a good moment. There's a time, every now and then in your career you have about 4 or 5 of these moments where you sort of blank out and go with it. I guess the childhood part of your mind, the playing part, you're playing it to the point where you're not even conscious of the other actor or of do I look good, do I look bad, or what? You're just losing it. And this was one of those great moments. I guess because it was so cold, your defenses are down. You've been doing this for so long that you just throw caution to the damn
The
wind.
perimeter's covered. No exits. There are nearly 200 men out there and a lot of M16s. You did everything to make this private war happen.
I rewrote the end of the script from the point of view of a lot of disillusioned Vietnam vets. I took about 20 different ideas and tried to amalgamate them into one. That being a fellow who is trying to have a thought process that's logical, but he's got so many ideas locked up in his brain. He's been so silenced by society and in his own anger that he can't put it together. So what you're hearing here is a fellow who is just a stream of consciousness, almost like a fellow who is literally exploding, like an autistic fellow who now learns to speak.
Let us win. Then I come back to the world, and I see all those maggots at the airport protesting me, spitting, calling me baby killer and all kinds of vile crap. Who are they to protest me, huh? Who are they? Unless they've been me and been there and know what the hell they're yelling about.
It was a bad time for everyone, Rambo. It's all in the past now.
For you! For me, civilian life is nothing. In the field, we had a code of honor. You watch my back, I watch yours. Back here, there's nothing.
You're the last of an elite group. Don't end it like this.
Back there, I can fly a gunship. I can drive a tank. I was in charge of $1 million equipment. Back here, I can't even hold a job. Fucking guards! Ah!
Now the descent. Childlike, gone.
Where's everybody? God,
The warrior is gone, and now this is
friend.
bare bones. And this is what a lot of Vietnam vets felt.
All these guys, man. Back there, I had all these fighting guys who were my friends. Because back here, there's nothing. Remember Dan Forrest? He wore his black headband. I took one of those magic markers, and I said it found. He mailed us to Las Vegas because we were always talking about Vegas and this fucking car. This red 58 Chevy convertible. He's talking about this car.
These are all true stories.
Cruise till the tires fall off. Go in this bar in Saigon, and this kid comes up. This kid carrying a shoeshine box. And he says, shine, please, shine. I said, no. He kept asking, yeah. And Joey said, yeah. And I went to get a couple of beers. And the box is wired. And he opened up the box, fucking blew his body all over the place. And he's laying there, and he's fucking screaming. There's pieces of him all over me, just like this. And I'm trying to pull him off, you know. And it's my friend that's all over me. He's got blood and everything, and I'm trying to hold him together. I put him together, his fucking insides keep coming out. And nobody would help. No one helped. And he's saying, please, I want to go home. I want to go home. He keeps calling my name. I want to go home, Johnny. I want to drive my Chevy. I said, well, what? I can't find your fucking legs. I can't find your legs. I can't get it out of my head. I do this 7 years.
I had a big disagreement with the powers that be over this scene, but I felt compelled to try to like give some sense of hope to these guys, that if they could somehow be understood or be able to vocalize what their demons are, there was some sense of redemption. And we had some disagreement about this, but I really, after this, I felt committed to it. After the scene, I went to a couple of Vietnam vets who were sitting off screen. I said, what did you think? He goes, you did us proud. I said, okay, fine. But if you notice here at Trautman, it's kind of interesting the way Richard plays this. He doesn't ever drop his professional aloofness. It's, okay, I'll hold you, but I'm not going to condone or embrace or father you the way you would expect it to be. Like, oh yeah, I love you, son. I'm with you. No, I am a military junkie, and that's what I am. And I mean, and you're one of my soldiers, but you're a machine. You're part of the machinery.
It's a long road when you're on your own.
And that long walk to, well, into the sequel.
And every new town just seems to bring you down, trying to find peace.
Funny story about this. This film was kind of it was taking disastrous turns in the editing room, and it was not working, and people were very afraid of it, and the producers had put their life savings, and they just saw their money going down the drain and being ruined. So they asked me, they put together a 40-minute screening, and I hated the film first time I saw it. I really did. Everyone did. It went on for 3.5 hours. It was just not working. Something about it it needed to be cut and whatever. And it's not just me. I mean, everyone was feeling this is a disaster. So I sort of moved on to other things. I said, oh boy. We even tried to buy the negative back and just get rid of it. So this is why people shouldn't panic, I guess, is that the editors and a few other people got together and they cut it down to 40 minutes, made a 40-minute presentation tape, and they invited some of the most important exhibitors and critics from around the world. And they said, Sly, I want you to go in front, please, make a speech and tell them how great this film is. There's another Rocky, it's another this. I said, are you crazy? Last time I saw this film, I was nauseous. I mean, even people that like me wouldn't lie. They said it was horrible, horrible film. And they said, no, it's a different film now, just trust us. I said, so I'm supposed to go out there to financial people that I'm going to work with and lie to them. Yeah, just say it's great. So I went out there and I spoke as though this was The Godfather. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life and whatever. And they ran the 40 minutes and I was blown away. I was shocked at how clever editing, wonderful music, and plot points that are brought out, and all the excesses that sometimes in filmmaking we get, like, running through the woods for an hour is brought from an hour down to 12 minutes. And what they got, more importantly, was a film that worked on several levels. It's about alienation. You don't have to be a Vietnam vet to say, oh, yeah, I feel that's what relationship I have with my mother and my father. I know what it's like to be an outsider, and that's what I think they achieved with this one more than the other Rambo films, which are good action films, but this one worked on a more profound emotional level without sounding too corny. Anyway, it was an honor to be involved with Rambo and this film. It's one of the highlights of my life. Over and out. Thank you all for listening to Sylvester Stallone, coming from the planet Earth. Ciao.